Mute yourself. That's
all right. Good evening. I'll go ahead and we don't have a president that we've elected, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We're going to take care of elections later on, but we'll go ahead to do a roll call. Should I do the roll call? Okay. Oh, that's going to be hard because I'm. Colin, could you do roll call actually? So I get it right.
Miles Durfee.
Here.
Geronimo Gaitan. Michael Hoover.
Here.
Tuan Pham.
Thank you.
Here.
Okay. All members are here and we'll go ahead and start. The next is approval of the agenda. I know the agenda was passed around. We probably need to take an action on that. So I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Michael and Tuan. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we take roll call votes on all these? We don't have any remote tonight, but I know the bylaws.
If we don't have any remote, we don't need to take a roll call vote, and it can just be all ayes or nays together.
Okay, great.
Or all ayes. If there are any nays, then yeah.
Okay. Hearing no nays and all ayes, that motion is approved. Thank you for that. The next item is public comment. So I will, are there any public comment slips or any public comment?
Susie, are there any public comment cards? Susie, are there any public comment cards?
No, no public cards.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll move ahead to the consent items. There's 5 consent items in front of you tonight, 2.1, 2, 3, 2.4, and 2.5. We can take those as one motion if you'd all like to, and if you've read those motions. Any motion?
I feel good about motion to approve.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
I second.
Okay, thank you, Tuan. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. We'll move on to, did the minutes, I didn't see the minutes. I thought I saw the minutes earlier, but they're not now. Are they later in the agenda? I missed it for the last meeting.
The minutes were in consent.
Okay,
Yep.
got it. Thank you. I didn't read that. Okay. All right, so we're moving on to information reports and discussion. And Colin, you're up first. Superintendent report.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see all of you in this brand new boardroom. Thank you all for making it out in person. So we are going to start the superintendent's report with some recognitions and celebrations. First, I would like to recognize our certificated employee of the month from the month of January, and it is Miss Ali Devlett. And Miss Devlett is an exemplary teacher. She embodies what the art of teaching looks like. Not only is she a strong ELA teacher, but she is an instructional leader on the Heritage team. She works hard to support teachers in their implementation of workshop and is just amazing in her own classroom. So congratulations, Ali. And for process purposes, because this is our first time here, I'm going to go through all of the employees and parent of the month and so on, and then I'll ask the board when I'm done to come out in front, and then we'll do the photo ops. Okay. Next, our classified employee of the month for the month of January is Mr. Juan Munguia. I believe that he is present at our LA site. So congratulations to Mr. Munguia. So Mr. Munguia is a custodian at Vista Charter Middle School. Mr. Munguia is one of the hardest working individuals that we have ever met. And these are the words from Principal Mr. Summer. He has a positive attitude and is always looking for ways to serve Vista and our community. He has a positive attitude at all times and truly makes Vista a better place. Congratulations, Mr. Munguia. And our Vista Parent Supporter of the Month, we actually have two. It's a husband and wife. And so it's Mr. Ricardo Vasquez and Miss Lucina Cruz, who are Meridian parents. So congratulations to them. They could not be here this evening because they are actually at an award ceremony for their daughter, who is also who's getting an award. So, but we will make sure to pass this on to them. Mr. Vasquez and Miss Cruz are parents of a 12th grade student at Meridian and have been helping Vista Meridian along their journey. They've helped out with recruitment, provided balloons for events, have stepped in and been DJs for students at other events, and are always willing to help when called upon. It is families like the Vasquez family that make our communities stronger. So thank you very much, the Vasquez family, and congratulations again. I'm going to do one other, that we have a few other employees to celebrate, and then we'll get the photo ops right afterwards. So we won't have this every single month, but one of the traditions that we have started at Vista is when an employee has reached their 10-year milestone, we do a special honor. And so this month, we are doing a little catch up. So we've got 3 employees who over the past few months have hit their 10-year milestone. So the first one, and she is here in attendance, is Miss Erica Nahara, who is and she is our Director of Special Education and Pupil Services, and before that was an education specialist for Vista Charter Middle School in LA. We also recently have had Miss Felicia Santana, who has been many different positions in the Vista Charter Middle School office, and most recently is working in the central office as an office manager. So she also recently reached 10 years, and she could not be here with us this evening, as well as Mr. Jose Quintanilla, who is Vista Charter Middle School's plant manager, also reached the 10-year milestone recently. So let's give them all a round of applause. And now I'd like to ask the board and Miss Amaya to join me out in front, and we will do photos. And we have some goodies, all donated. So no Vista funds. I see Dan and Arturo in the audience. No Vista funds were used. These were all donated privately. All right. We're just getting started with the superintendent's report. Next, we are going to celebrate and honor our board because the month of January is School Board Appreciation Month. So I have not told the board members this, but we have a little special surprise. I try not to give surprises, but this is one that I'm going to give them a surprise because it is really celebrating them. So we have a nice little video to say thank you to our board members as part of School Board Appreciation Month. So please play the video. And as a small token of our appreciation, we have a few small gifts. Again, no public funds were used for these gifts. So if we can hand them out, thank you. Now, don't get used to this. This doesn't happen every month. But I know most of you just started on the board, and we are very, very excited for what's to come with the organization. And thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah, thank you for the video.
All right, moving on. we also have business that's going on. So I want to share some updates with that. First, with the strategic plan update, and I'm going to pass it on over to our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Amaya, for some of that.
Really excited. I have lots of news to share. Our teams have been working a lot on our strategic plan. So our first priority is accelerate learning. And under that priority, we have 3 initiatives that we're working on this year. The first initiative is data-driven instruction. And all of our schools administered a second diagnostic. So we have recent data. In our upcoming principals meeting, we will be looking at that data together, and our principals will be using a data-driven data analysis protocol to create action plans for moving forward. The goal is that we use this protocol with the principals in our principals meeting, and that then principals are able to use it with teams at their school sites to really improve outcomes for student achievement. We also have our ELA curriculum. The ELA working group is meeting this Wednesday. They have developed a vision of excellence for VISTA. They have also created a rubric to delineate what curriculum and programs align with that vision of excellence. And on Wednesday, they will be reviewing our current curriculum as well as other curriculum to make sure that that aligns to our vision of excellence in our rubric. And we'll be making a recommendation for next steps upon review. Finally, our last initiative is improving outcomes for English learners. This working group finally met last week. And the working group is comprised of primarily principals. In our first meeting, we looked at the new EL roadmap policy, the state's new EL roadmap policy. And then we also discussed the state of ELD at VISTA with the end goal of revising our EL master plan to make sure that it aligns with the new roadmap policy and just meeting the needs of our English learner, which is a large subgroup at all of our schools. So that's it for priority 1. Colin, are you?
Yeah, and I can give an update on priority 2. So the second priority is our move as one priority. And really the update there around initiative 2.1, the VISTA Identity Initiative, is that we have drafted the portrait of a graduate for VISTA Charter Public Schools. We will be running that by the principals tomorrow at the principals meeting for feedback. And then we plan to bring it to the board later on this spring. All right, moving on. Enrollment updates. Enrollment has stayed steady across each of our schools. All in all, we're at just under 1,800 students total. And we are also shifting our focus on enrollment to the 2025-26 school year. We recently just had our lottery dates. We did not have to hold a lottery. Although we had a total of 134 lottery applications across our schools. So that, in addition to the returning students, we are going to continue to work at each school site to get closer and closer to our enrollment goals for next year. I would like to, so last month, I shared as part of the principal's report that Mr. Proano was serving as the interim principal for Vista Meridian. And this month, I am elated to share that we are removing the interim tag, and Mr. Proano is now the permanent principal of Vista Meridian. And in very little time, Mr. Proano has captured the hearts of the staff, students, and families at Vista Meridian. So thank you for your leadership, and we are very excited to see what's to come at Meridian. 2 weeks ago, we had the ribbon cutting ceremony for this central office, and we had a number of dignitaries in the audience. We had Santa Ana City Council members Phil Becerra and David Penalosa. We had a representative from the office of the Assembly Member Avelino Valencia. We had Orange County Board of Education Trustee Mary Barkey, Orange County Department of Education Superintendent Dr. Stephen Bean, as well as Santa Ana College President Dr. Annabelle Neri, all in attendance, and plus many more. And so it was an amazing event. I'd like to publicly recognize Alyssa Ross for putting that event together. And we are so excited to use this brand new building for not only board meetings like this, but also on a day-to-day basis. Moving on, we had our Vista Charter Middle School oversight visit last week. That went extremely well. Bravo to Mr. Summer and the entire Vista Charter Middle School team. A few highlights from that visit. Kagan strategies were implemented in almost every single classroom during the observations. TAs were actively supporting students in small groups, and technology was seamlessly integrated into every single classroom. We also had Heritage's mid-year cycle WASC visit last week. Last week was a busy week. And so last Wednesday, Heritage not only had their WASC visit, but this is just the mid-cycle. It's not the full accreditation. 3 years ago, they got a 6-year accreditation with a 3-year mid-cycle visit just to check in on how they're doing. And some of the highlights from that, one thing that I really appreciated was the visiting committee said that the school is very self-aware on their areas of growth. And so again, that's very validating that we know exactly what we need to work on. Communication was also a strength that was identified at Heritage. The Better World Conference that has been going on for a few years now, they said had a quote unquote wow factor. And there was also overall very strong staff camaraderie. And a quote from the visiting committee, they said, "It's not just about the collaboration, but the willingness to collaborate." We have a staff, and Ms. Alessandro has really cultivated an environment where staff want to collaborate. It's not forced. Also in Santa Ana, we have debuted our new Spider Lab, and so Condor and Heritage students will be able to get experience of what it's like to run their own business and a number of different technological skills. And I'd like to publicly recognize Dr. Real for making that vision into a reality. And as part of that, I would also like to share that we are going to have a central office design competition with Heritage students using the Spider Lab, because there are a lot of white walls in this office, and we need our students' help to help design and make this a lively, vibrant central office building. And so the winner's design will be showcased at the central office. Last two items. So Vista has been active in helping those impacted by the Southern California wildfires. Both Vista Horizon and Palm Lane have recently held fundraisers. Each school raised about $400 to be donated to the Los Angeles Fire Department's foundation. So thank you to the Horizon and Palm Lane communities for that. And while luckily none of the Vista family was displaced by the wildfires, I do want to share that, and he is here today, Mr. Summers' parents' home and the home that Mr. Summer grew up in, unfortunately did burn down in the fire. And I say that because I have attached the GoFundMe link to the superintendent's report. If anybody wants that link, I'd be happy to share with you. And so anything and everything helps. And so our thoughts are definitely with you and your family, Mr. Summer. Lastly, I want to share an update about how Vista is supporting students amid threats of immigration enforcement and deportation. And so that has been a concern that has been expressed across every single school. And I want the Vista family to know that we stand with all students, regardless of immigration status. And schools must be a safe haven for all students. And regardless of immigration status, we state and federal law says that ICE cannot enter schools. And so we will do everything according to the law to make sure that our students are safe and can continue to receive a high quality education. We're also providing our families with resources. We do not ask families about their immigration status, but we are here to help. And I want to make sure that every single family knows that. And that is the end of the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, staff. Are there any questions from the board members, discussion? Well, as you're thinking of those questions, I will just thank the staff for all the reports. I know we don't go through each one of the reports that's attached to this item, but I found them very, very helpful, reading them very thoroughly as I come more up to speed as a newer board member. So thank you for the time you're devoting to that, because I know every day is really about the students, and that takes you a little bit away from the students. But it's really valuable to me, and I think to the public and to the board, I hope. And thank you for all the recognitions tonight and the celebrations, because it shows what an active community this is. And so thanks for all the time on that as well. Any questions? Go ahead, Michael.
I had a quick question, just with the enrollment and the lottery numbers, curious with historically, if there's resources or things that need to be put there, like relative to how we're doing to ensure our schools are enrolled.
Yeah, absolutely. We always like to look at where we were last year at this time, and the good news is, for the most part, schools are above the pace of where they were at in January 2024. But we are continuing to work with every single school site, each of the principals, community school coordinators, office staff. It's really a team effort to make sure that we are outreaching to the community, outreaching to feeder schools, and outreaching via other avenues such as social media to make sure that families know about Vista.
That's super helpful, and I'm curious if we could get an update on that in the next one, just because we want to make sure to do what we can to support.
Absolutely.
We have a question regarding the accelerated learning for the data-driven insights. How do you monitor that? Do you monitor at the school level, classroom level, grade level? How do you know like those changes are getting better?
Sorry. Yes. And that's I think right now that's the goal. We didn't have anything in place network wide, organization wide. So, but every principal at every school site is monitoring and tracking their data at all those different levels. I think the goal this year is to really align that work and to make sure that we're all doing it in the same way, so that we can really start to see the alignment, but the assessments are the same. So, and I'll share a little bit more about like the assessments and the data later, but I think right now that's the goal. It's not that it's not being done, it's just to make sure that it's more consistent across the board.
And are the changes, if we implement them, are they specific for students or schools? Or are they implemented across all the schools?
So what I was going to say majority, but no, what all of the principals are doing is looking at the different student groups and creating plans for specific groups. Teachers will then go and implement those plans at an individual student level. And then it just becomes about tracking and monitoring. And thus far, we are seeing growth. So
Okay.
it's always a goal, growth and progress.
Yeah, I'd love to see those reports.
Yes.
Or I think we all would love to see it.
All right. Stay tuned.
Geronimo?
No.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is 3.4, discussion for creation of a home office account for common revenues and expenditures.
I think,
Oh.
sorry, 3.2.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Principals.
3.3, Icon Financial
3
regarding.
point, I think we have a quick principal report.
Math was apparently not my best subject. So let me go. I'm jumping ahead. 3.2, thank you. Now I see it. 3.2, principal reports for Vista Heritage Global and the principal reports.
And so, again, as a matter of procedure, each month we have one principal on a rotating basis present their principal reports. However, all principal reports are added to the board agenda for review. So I'd like to invite Mr. Perano, our brand new Vista Meridian principal.
There you go. All right. Let me start off with Meridian's enrollment. We have maintained our problem with our new DMC building. We're out of space for our freshmen. So Ms. Young, our assistant principal, and I were moving some things around to make some more room because typically in January we have that influx of parents coming in, and we are starting to see it. We have parents coming in to request spots for not just one, but either 2 or 3 siblings. So we're currently working on that. We're still accepting them all in. As far as recruitment goes, don't know how familiar you guys are with the DMC building. Right across the street, it's kind of a gold mine. It is a Friday night community party out there. There are food trucks, there are vendors. So we're currently working on some flyers, making some plans to get out there and start recruiting and just kind of letting the family know that they have a high school right across the street from where they like to hang out. We have a school choice event coming up on the 1st. That's at the Santa Ana Zoo that we'll be present at, along with Heritage and Condor as well. And then we're currently working with Heritage to find out when their 8th grade assembly is so we can start pulling those parents in as well. Aside from that, we're reaching out to the families, the parents, asking for help, reaching out to our local staff members who know the area really well to find out what other events we can get involved with. Our new location, the DMC building, has been a hit amongst our students. On the very first day, we found a lot of students with their cell phones apologizing as they recorded kind of the building and what it looked like. I think overall, they're just excited to have a space to call their own. You know, they started the school year off at Santa Ana College, sharing spaces, sharing classrooms with other professors. So to have a space to call theirs, they're just overly thrilled and happy with. Regardless of working out this new transportation, working our way through all these different sites, the students have continued to just remain calm, respectful. They're not upset, and they just wait for their next van or the next bus to come and take them to the next location. So it's been a really great migration in. Something that we haven't had yet is an abundance of space. And at DMC, we have more offices than we know what to do with. So we have a lot of flex spaces, which is great as we start working our way over to interventions with all of our TAs. We also added the Salvation Army to our space this semester, which will be the first time that Meridian really has their own gym and field to call their own. Our athletics director and our coaches will be hosting their own CIF games, starting off with volleyball as the season begins. We were meeting with the vendor this morning, and he kind of gave us a Meridian Athletics sign that we can put up in the gym, and we're looking at other material as well. And that, again, the kids are excited to have a space to call their own. Previously, at Santa Ana College, their space was a grass space in the middle of the college that all these college kids are walking around, and the last thing they want to do is jumping jacks in front of all these bigger college kids. So now to have a space that's theirs, it's really picked up the pride over at in that spot. Santa Ana College, we're still there. we have moved to different classrooms again, but the vice president and the president of Santa Ana College have agreed we do not need to move the rest of the year. They will leave us in those classrooms, which is fantastic. As far as the culture of that school goes, there's been a lot of changes that I put in. Lanyards seem like a small thing, but it's made a big change. all Meridian students are asked to wear red lanyards with their ID, because on the back of their ID, it helps supervision understand when they have free period, who's allowed to go off campus for lunch, and what grade they're in and where they need to be. This really helps as we are currently moving through 4 different spots on some days. Really helps with our transportation and our supervision staff. We're also, and we're going to get to this, I'm going to end on this one, but we're also celebrating a lot of our seniors. As you guys might know, this is the first senior class for Vista Meridian. Those college applications have gone out and results are starting to come in. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But we do have a FAFSA night that is being hosted here at Heritage for all the families. On that night, we'll talk to parents about graduation requirements. We'll talk to parents about senior events that are coming up. And then we will roll into helping the families out with FAFSA, which is going to be, we're bringing in a speaker from Chapman to help us out and get the families on board. We've also expanded our team. We've added Mr. Ramos onto our staff. He is another history teacher. So far this year, we've had to add a math and a history just because our classes are getting too big, which is a great problem to have for us. So we're continuously expanding that group. And the great thing with the expansion is interventions are starting to kick in. There are a few TAs that I've already identified that are going to start helping me put an intervention program together to start focusing on the 5-6 kids from each class to assist the teachers and assist our scores to move up. As we get into professional development, we've dove back into Danielson, we've dove into gear, senior portfolios have been worked on. This coming Friday, we're doing that deep data dive into IXL. IXL Snapshot is what Meridian uses, which is equivalent to iReady at the other schools. So we're doing that deep dive this coming Friday, and we'll start creating those groups, looking at EL supports, SPED supports, and so on. I do want to end kind of on this last page. We've covered a lot of what's going on, but there are 5 different students that I kind of really want to recognize and spotlight for Meridian. Daniela has already been accepted to Dominguez Hills. Ernie has already been accepted to CSUN. Henry has been accepted to San Francisco State University. And then I have 2 others. I have Samantha, who's received 3 acceptance offers so far from different colleges. And then we have Winner. Winner is a remarkable young man. He has applied for 6 and he's been accepted to 6. So he has a big choice ahead of him to kind of go through, and that's really just picked up the excitement and just kind of adding to the work that's being done by the teachers at Meridian. And that's our report. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, it was great to see the pictures of the students with their acceptances and you know, first year, really good to hear. So we'll be excited to hear how their college experiences are and how they move through college. So that'll be great. Great. Okay. Now I was so excited about the icon report from Arturo and Dan that I jumped to 3.3. So 3.3, Arturo.
And then last month, we looked at the first interim drafts for Orange County. And so we'll look at the final ones that were submitted in December. And then finally, we'll cover November 2024 financials for each of the schools. Next slide. Actually, go 2 slides. There we go. All right. So the governor proposal comes out in January. It's his first kind of inkling at what he expects to pass as the state budget for the following school year. So we kind of get first looks at a couple of things. First part is that the economy for California is doing a little bit better than it was last year for this fiscal year. So we're looking at some growth for next year. However, with the fires that happened in Southern California, we're waiting to see what will happen with the second half tax revenue. But it at least is kind of progressing in a positive direction. However, he still is planning to continue a withdrawal from the state reserves, about 7.1 billion. And the COLA for next year is a little bit less than what was projected prior. So originally we're at about a 2.93. Now it's about a 2.4%. Still healthier than it was for this fiscal year. That was around 1%. We are going to see an increase to ELOP funds, so those that help support the after-school programs at the schools. And this doesn't impact Vista, but the threshold for that is getting moved from 75 to 55. As you know, Vista's unduplicated percentage is pretty high, over 90%, generally all the school sites. All right, on to the next slide, please, or you can kind of skip 2 slides. So the OC schools first interims. We looked at drafts last month, and they were pretty much right on with what ended up being final for each of the schools. Looking at Heritage compared to the update we had in September, ADA did drop a little bit, about 3 ADA points, which overall it was a decrease in LCFF funding, but total revenues actually went up a bit. The reason for that is we had some remaining ESSER 3 funds that weren't in the original budget, but were utilized before September. So that will come in, and then more utilization of ELOP funds. So that helped as well. On the expenditure side, we do see increases for some updated on staffing. Medical benefit increases were higher than anticipated. And the one big impact that hit both of the OC schools were property tax. So originally our hope and expectation was that the property tax for this facility and this campus was going to be less this year, but because construction continued through till the end of December, unfortunately that didn't occur. So that property tax arrived. I know the school is still working on hopefully getting a portion of that refunded or sent back to the school, but we included that here to be conservative in case that doesn't occur. So overall, net income continued to drop. We had an income negative 9,000 at September. Now it's negative 177. We are utilizing learning recovery funds. So most of that negative funding is from restricted funds. So we're grabbing that from the reserve. So your net unrestricted income for Heritage is going to go up slightly at the end of the year, about $43,000. Looking at Condor, ADA, we lowered it about almost 5 points at 4.77. So again, that's a decrease in your LCFF, about 67,000. However, kind of offset a bit with ESSER funds, as I mentioned, similar story as Heritage, more utilization of ELOP. And the reason I'm saying more ELOP is you have your apportionment, but we only include in the budget what you've budgeted currently. With both Heritage and Condor, you also have ACES funding, and for Heritage, some 21st Century funding. So at times it's, we look to see if we can use all of ELOP. So we were able to kind of get closer to what your apportionment was. You guys started some investments in the last year, so that's starting to pay out, and that was the increase in local revenues. So although your 88 went down, your revenues actually went up quite a bit, about $250,000. On the expenditure side, however, we did have some staffing increases, as I mentioned last month, some additional BIIs to the campus, as well as some of your transportation folks are full-time, and there's been some overtime, so that's driven up those costs. And then in the 5,000 series, again, is that kind of property tax that I mentioned there. So net income has declined again from 230 to 387,000 in the red for this year. Again, utilizing quite a bit of learning recovery funds though, 300,000, and UPK, which is your universal pre-kindergarten that's been sitting in restricted. So your net income or unrestricted is still negative currently at 43,000. It was always going to be tight this year. If we're able to get some of that tax, property tax refunded, then you'll be breaking even or just about breaking even, hopefully. For Palm Lane, so their ADA has actually been pretty consistent, so we didn't change that at all. They got some additional revenues through the employee retention credit they received this year, as well as some remaining ESSER 3, and as in the other sites, ELOP and investment interest as well. There have been some increases across the board, but they were less than what you got in revenues. So overall, their net income actually went up slightly from 23,000 projected in September to 86,000 at this point in first interim. And then with the UPK and Arts, Music, and Instructional Grant, the unrestricted net income's projected right now to go up about 131,000 at the end of the year. Meridian, so they've also been pretty steady. We did lower the ADA just about a point, so that did lower their LCFF. They've gotten some additional grant funding, which I know you're going to hear about a little bit later when Dr. Real speaks about the CTE budget. So overall revenues were pretty flat on the expenditure side. This is going to be changing as there are a lot of changes occurring at Meridian, but at this point, which was through end of October and through November, there were some savings on the staffing side. Medical benefits, again, were a little bit higher. And overall, their net income dropped just a bit from 156 to 128,000, but still projected in the black. Questions on that before I move to November? Okay, so moving to November financials, sorry. Keep thinking I'm clicking here and you guys are moving it, so. I'll get used to this new process. All right, looking at the middle school. So Vista Middle School through November actuals. So pretty much on track. The one area they are above is in their books and supplies. So about 52%, and that's been the story from the beginning of the year with some big purchases, computer and curriculum. So that has been trending a little bit down, but still above for the middle school. You can skip next 2 slides. So looking at the balance sheet, assets overall, cash at the end of November was just under $7 million. Assets of $15 million, liabilities of half of that, with accounts payable out about $254,000. So total equity for the middle school is about $7.5 million. Next one, Heritage. So again, through November, generally on track. This is actually one where you're a little bit above before on the 5,000 series, but now you're just on track currently. So, and that includes that tax payment that we talked about when we looked at the first intro. Next slide. Well, that one's hard to see, so one more. So at the end of November for Heritage, cash in the bank account and county treasury was just under $2 million. Assets of $26.1 million. So for everyone here saying that's a huge number, that includes this facility. So it's a big portion, but then you see that kind of taken out in liabilities of $25.2 million, which includes your bond for this facility, and accounts payable about $237,000. So equity for the Heritage is just under $1 million right now at $894K. Next one. For Condor. So on track, but in the staffing, but currently above on the 4,000 series. Again, some bigger purchases at the beginning of the year, but trending closer to being on track. So, heading in the right direction. Services is above at 46, so we'll be keeping an eye on that as we move forward towards the second interim. Overall, you are above just a bit at Condor. Maybe go 2 more. So their balance sheet currently, so assets of 23.8 mil, cash at the end of November was 3.4 million, liabilities of 21, equity of 2.3 for Condor. Horizon, next one. So on track across the board. This is actually one that they were above in the 4,000 series, but have been managing their spending. So now they're back on track and in a pretty good spot overall, about 36% of total expenditures. There were some positions in here that we added at the first interim that they've just started to hire on as, for example, an after-school coordinator. So you'll see that kind of increase as we move forward, but we'll be on track. Their balance sheet, if you go through 2. So at the end of November, they had assets of 1.6 mil, which cash was 1.1. Liabilities of just over 333,000. So equity of about 1.3 million for Horizon. No big assets because they don't have a building. They are on a Prop 39 location. So that's why you see the big difference there. Palm Lane, on track, aside from classified staff, just a little bit above. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that piece. Sound like a broken record. The 4,000 series was just above as well, but they had a big science curriculum purchase at the beginning of the year that contributed to that. Their 5,000 series is a little bit above, captured a late facility payment, which I think is what's kind of carrying it above. Their balance sheet is pretty healthy. We go through 2. So assets of just under $9 million, cash are just over 3.4, and liabilities of only about $1 million. So equity of almost $8 million for Palm Lane. And then last but not least is Vista Meridian. So this is a little deceiving. As you'll see, they're really on track and under 40% across the board. Big portion there is the 5,000 series at 25. So they just started making facility payments. They weren't invoiced for the front half or the first semester. So you'll see that catch up pretty quick. Their balance sheet, go 2 more. So, they have assets of 3, but that's mainly cash from their cash flow loan. So liabilities about 3.1. So they're currently, just negative, as they did end up last year in the negative. So kind of what you expect at this point. 2 more. The next thing are outstanding checks. So as always, these are checks that have been outstanding 60 plus days. The ones that are highlighted have been even longer than that. So we'll start a new process. We're going to be sending this out directly to the principals to follow up, as most of these are reimbursements for staff members. And so if you're here and you see you have a reimbursement with a check that hasn't been cashed, please take a look. And if you lost it, email your principal so we can get you another check issued and make sure this gets cleared out. And then your December check registers. Questions? Thank you very much.
I have a couple questions. I'm trying to look at the school, but one of the schools has a low ADA, or the ADA was down on the interims, I think, for Orange County, but then it looks like January, the ADA levels are even down further. I'm trying to scan back to which one it is, but are there schools that you're concerned about the ADA levels dropping, and which ones? And so we can be just highlighting that information.
Yeah, so we did update the ADA. You're right, both OC schools dropped their ADAs quite a bit, from 3 to 4 points. And last at P1, I believe they were down a little bit more, about half a point. So we were trying to be conservative and not project up. I think it is. I meet regularly with the principals, and we always discuss, how ADA is going and what plans they have in place to try to get kids on campus as often as possible. But it would be, Condor, making sure that they can hit their ADA number, as they're in the toughest fiscal position currently.
Okay. I think the other question is, it looks like from the interims, it's more apparent in Orange County that the operating and services is over budget, or came in over budget for all those areas. It's not as clear from the January finance or the November financials when you look at those, but it's still one of those areas where it seems like it's trending, even though I look at your on track, above track and all that, but it seems like we're spending more than we're budgeting, and maybe those budgets were low, but what do you see that? And then I guess the compound of that question is, if you could just remind me about what VTech means. It's in each one of these listings.
So I'll answer that portion first. The VTech portion, when we had the original budgets in place, there was a chief technology officer at the school sites, and that changed over the summer, and so ended up being with VTech IT services. So it was just an adjustment of where that got moved from one area to the other on the first interim. So at the beginning of the year, in the approved budgets, it was salary, and for the first interims, we moved it over into the 5,000
So it moved from
series.
staffing to services.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
In terms of the 5,000 series, it's both OC sites had a very tight budget to begin with, just based off where they ended up their enrollment versus their projection at the beginning of the year. So we kept things pretty tight to where they were expenditures last year. Transportation is the one area that seems to be outpacing where we expected it to be, and that's occurred with the changes in the different facilities and the need that's been there. So it is an area we're keeping an eye on. There's been some additional hiring to help put more systems in place for transportation to try to get those costs under control.
Okay. I think those are all my questions right now. Are there any other questions from Rama?
Just one. I appreciate the insight on this, and saying you meet with the principals about ADA. ADA is tough right now, right? But noticing the two schools, right, that struggling with the financials, chronic absenteeism over 30% right now. What's your sense when you talk to the principals, right? Is this something like they feel like they have a system, they're working towards it, right? They're doing the best they can, or are they kind of, we don't really know what to do?
I think they're all well aware of it.
Yeah.
And all seem to have at least a plan in place, or at least talking to the staff on what they can kind of put together to help drive attendance. But it is a tough time heading into the cold and flu season.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's one of those things that it's happening across all over, and getting on top of it, feeling like the principals have the support they need to, and the resources to because it takes a lot to do those calls and the follow-up, and so whatever we need to do to be in support is, I just want to highlight.
If I can add some trend, I'm Daniel Lee from Icon too. So just comes out in the LA Unified School District, who is leading the education in California. The enrollment is 29% decrease from the 2012 and 13 to current years. Enrollment dropped down 29% in LA Unified School District. It's about 30%. That's big drop in the LA Unified School District. And then we actually, as a Vista, is keeping as the balance, the budget is pretty good compared to the district. As actually LA Unified School District, just to finish the first interim report the last month, there's a $2.3 billion deficit that they estimated 1.7 billion, which is actually $0.6 billion more than they actually estimated because of the expenditure pattern. That's a trend in sense that in terms of the reason I'm saying that I'm not bragging on it, but I think Vista in sense that doing well in the trend that we're getting it about the enrollment decline and then also expense increase. I know that there's a lot to go, but I think in the community that we got in the Orange County LA Unified School District, actually I'm not saying that we are the leader, but I think we're the top school that we actually handling our expenditure and enrollment and so far. The budget comes out and then we not really rely on the number that we just given in January. Usually the proposed budget is mean nothing, but we're gonna come back with a board about the May revision that any final budget for the next year. And then we will know the better next year. But whatever, Arturo did a great job, but that's a proposed budget to the governor by 25, 26.
And I would also add one of the things that Arturo mentioned that is hitting this year that wouldn't be continuing for the OC schools in particular is the property tax. And we could not get property tax exemption until we had certification that the construction was completed. And so we're still hopeful that we might be able to get reimbursement after the fact, but we don't want to count on that. So that might be the case, but moving forward, at least now that construction is done, we have applied for property tax exemption and expect to have that. So that'll help Condor and Heritage for sure.
Thanks, Colin. Any other questions? All right, thanks, Arturo.
You're welcome.
Okay, now to 3.4, discussion of the creation of the home office account for common revenues and expenditures.
All right.
Hand that over to you, Colin.
So I wanted to have a discussion with the board. I also invited Dan Lee, who you just met, CEO of Icon School Management, and then also on Zoom is John Lemo, partner at Young Minion Core. I wanted to begin having this conversation with the board because when we were just two schools and a much smaller organization, however many years ago, it was much easier to have, and we had a lot fewer shared resources. We are not a CMO, and so all of the shared resources are split between each school per ADA. And so one of the conversations, or the conversation that I wanted to have with the board, is the creation of a home office account to bring most expenditures, most shared resources into one account, because now that we are 6 and soon with like Elsinore 7 schools, it is getting very, very complex and in many ways inefficient to be splitting, and ADAs are constantly changing and so on, and really trying to make sure that we're staying up with what each school should be paying for a number of these shared resources. So I wanted to open up that discussion with the board, but also wanted to invite Dan and John to chime in as needed, or if you have any questions for Dan and John.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead? It'd be great to get you guys to give some perspective before we jump in. Can you hear us, John?
Oh,
John,
yeah,
if you can hear us, we can hear you. And if you want to go ahead and kind of give us a little perspective on discussions, and then we'll start with some questions and things after we hear that. And Dan, but go ahead and start, John.
Sure. So good evening, everyone. Sort of awkward for me because all I can see is sort of a picture of Miles sitting off to the side there and an empty. But down there's the whole. What a beautiful room you've got. So what Colin is suggesting is you're at sort of a size or at a scale where operationally it would make sense for you to sort of on a per capita basis from the schools fund a home office account. It would be basically a separate business unit within the organization from which you would, pay a lot of organization-wide expenditures, maybe some of your staffing, some of the expenses and the like that you're, I think, currently doing on a pro rata basis for everything, from each of the schools. I would say certainly most organizations of your size, even some organizations that just have 2 or 3 schools, sort of already do this. They sort of already have I use the term home office account. You can call it a central account, whatever you want to call it, but essentially a place where you can put resources that funds all the schools. You could also use it to house charitable dollars that you might, fundraise. So they're, for the benefit of all the school organizations. It's just sort of a good thing to have. You can sort of use it as little or as much as you like. I think some of your key staff, particularly your key admin staff, you'd still account for them the way you do now. You would sort of split their salaries, among the schools. It wouldn't be out of the home office account, but you could have other supports that would be paid out of your home office account. So that's essentially what it is. It's sort of a garden variety tool that many organizations your size and larger utilize. Dan probably has some.
Yeah, so
Go ahead, Dan.
this is Daniel Lee again. So my background is an auditor for the school district and charter school, about 15 years for the audit director, and then before I created the back office my own. So I know how sensitive about the creating home office or CMO is important, because we have a lot of different cases not really run well. So the whole thing is creating about the home office, central office for the Vista it should be more like approach is simply kidding about all the accounting procedure. What they mean that there's a central office. There's just the example that one person doing this work for all the 6 or 7 school. The now is a system is we have to actually tagging, that's classified employee has a tagging, divided by the ADA portion, and then we apply each salary for each schools. That is probably bring more, not transparency. I'm saying this still transparency. So there's more work that creating that all the work that done, right? Instead of we charging it at home office, be home office employee handle everything on the home office. So I mean, just more transparency, more accountability, and then simplification about all the procedure. And same time, as John mentioned, that all the grant that we're getting from the each school, not the employee working for the school only, the grant that we're getting, the donation, fundraising activity, anything is as a school as a whole that has to be sitting in the home office, and then the schools need a beneficial more that we can donate it to the school directly. Bottom line is this the home office, no matter what, is get audited. So it's kind of affiliated on the umbrella organization, nonprofit organization. So it will be audited end of the year as a part of the audit report. Only thing that we have to watch more closely, because we report only LEL reports, such as a first interim report, second interim report, and the honored actual report to all the agency we're going to is not appear as a home office, because we report as LEA only. But we're going to transparency report to if there's any case that we set it up there, we're going to report to the board every month, and then it's going to be audited by end of the year. So it's not the concept that as we make like wrong example a couple of times LA Unified School District, that we're not making home office creating hiding any fund. No, is a more likely complication that we're getting with the 7 school and then future school, and more simplified procedure, especially share employee and the classified employee, and then any share supplies that we have to contain. And then now we have a building for the home office that we have to maintain it as a separate bank account, instead of every single transaction has to be spread out to different, like 7 different schools. That's the whole concept.
And so again, we're not, this is not an action item, it's a discussion item. And so we really wanted to see if there are any questions, any comments from the board, but we're not going to take any action tonight.
Yeah, just adding one thing though. I mean, that was the discussion with the attorney and then the Dr. Felsh. This one will be pre-discussion with our sponsoring agency before bring to the board in an action item. The only reason that we just bring that up and share with the board and any input that you guys have that we can share before we heading to the agency. That's the whole idea today.
Great. Tuan, looked like you were jumping. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask. My voice is very raspy today. Lost my voice, but I was gonna ask, like, what cost allocation method would you recommend?
It's gonna be ADA.
ADA.
So it's gonna be a total. So it probably need my experience is gonna be a reconciliation period. We needed it because it's a start with a projection that how much ADA we're gonna get for each school. That's the leverage for the each allocation for the expenditure. But eventually, the actual ADA, which is P1 report, first attendance report, and we're gonna reconcile each school it's gonna be leverage on the ADA, which is most fair. The like method that we're gonna use it for other school.
And then a follow-up question is, what would we allocate? Would we consider just technology costs, marketing, insurance, liability, all of that?
No. There has to define the list that what expenditure we can share. Such as if insurance cost for the building for each building that we own, it cannot be because we have like one building has $2 million, it has maybe $500,000 life insurance. We can divide it by ADA those, but it's a more likely office supply and then other like definitely we can define what expenditure gonna be allocated it, not the case by case for the school. And so we're gonna list it what expenditure gonna be useful. It's not all the expenditure we're gonna apply to.
I'll just give a quick example. If we were to order a case of paper for here, and it's like 30, 40 bucks, we would have to split that between 7 different schools under how it's currently. And so you can see how tedious and overly complex it is under the current circumstance.
Yes, somebody working in the home office maintain it. Then we have to allocate it by ADA for each school, and then paycheck is gonna be 7 different methods. One paycheck, but we have to divide it by 7 different ways.
Yeah, just to add, I've been through the similar process as a growing charter network, and so it seems like the right move. And as long as you feel like we know through experience what not to do, right? As we make that, I just want to make sure that, and it sounds like through the experience. So just want to stamp that.
Yeah,
it makes things so much easier, but it does change the accounting and the process, and there's some moral hazards that can come with that. So it sounds like we get it. So I'm looking forward to hearing it as a follow-up.
Sure. Yeah, you will separate bank accounts so we can reconcile it what we have to. So it's not co-mingle with another bank. I don't want to use the co-mingle, but it's not going to co-mingle with another bank account. And by the way, I'm the one who's find the issue with the one of LA school that I was auditor. So so I'm not taking my own I'm not going to take a mistake that I actually found it a long time ago. So just make sure that we're right.
Yeah, I just from my comments, I think conceptually this is the right move, and I'm glad to see the staff considering this and how moving forward. I think I heard Dan say, and I'm glad he said sponsoring agency and kind of vetting that and talking through the implications to the sponsoring agencies. I think that's important. I guess, and then Tuan in the conversation, Tuan was asking is like the details are going to be some of the things that are critical for us to understand, because what are the services of the central office or the home office and what aren't, and those kinds of questions are going to come up. The other question, so the question I have for John is just if there are PERS, STIRS implications for central office employees, and whether from a governance perspective, what the trend is from a perspective of different governance models and structures, and what kind of changes we may need to make as we kind of pine through these, so that we don't choose a governance structure that's not politically in favor, even though it might be a perception problem rather than a real problem. We've seen some governance models that have been seen as threats, are risks, and we need to look at that. So I don't know if John can answer that question about just per STRS questions, John, and governor's model in general, and you
Sure.
can be as general as you need to be.
Sure. So it's really, I wouldn't characterize this as a governance change at all. It's really more of an accounting function. So we're using the term home office, which sort of, it's confusing because for many years when we talked about home offices, we sometimes were referring to separate corporations or separate entities that might be affiliated. This isn't that. This is what Dan described. It's basically an accounting function where you'd have one account that would pay out these expenses rather than doing the ADA per head allocation from the 7 schools to buy a box of paper, kind of thing. On the STRS issue, you may know that there are issues sort of statewide with STRS for multi-site or multi-charter organizations like yours anyway. So we already have an issue. I don't want to get too far in the weeds with it. There already is an issue that's been articulated by STRS for administrators at charter schools that are administrators for more than one charter held by a single employer. This is sort of getting sorted out through courts and maybe even by legislation, but this shouldn't really affect what this accounting mechanism really wouldn't affect those issues at all, because we would still have those STRS folks paid or comped the way Dan described. They're already going to be sort of compensated by the schools on the pro rata basis anyway. So there shouldn't be an effect from this at all.
Thanks, John. And then I guess my other question is from an implementation as we roll this forward, what kind of timeline would you expect, best case, worst case, knowing that and how do you roll it? And what do the implications have for this fiscal year budget versus next fiscal year budget? And how does that work?
Well, ideally, it's going to be June 1st. July 1st is going to be the ideal to set up the home office. And then we have probably more than 5 month period of time that we can discuss with the agency. Since we have 2 different agencies, it would be important that we can discuss both. And there are also 3 now that in the Riverside County. So it might be discussion for the 3 different agencies, make sure that they understand correctly. When we do the budget period, which is June, I think it would be ideal that we have a know that what direction we're going to, so we can actually budget it and the allocation correctly, that we can present the budget for the next year in June, should it be already been done. So I think from now, next step is discussion with the agency, and third, we're going to bring back with the board and then do the action and or discussion more, and probably 2-3 more board meeting that we're going to make a decision, and then based on the decision that we're going to make a budget proper way to, and then we're going to move on for next year. So it's not going to be incident that we have to make a decision right away. It's more like Dr. Felshi bring that up today and share with the board and then make sure that we do any contact with the agency. So it's more like a brainstorm and make sure the transparency disclose everything to the board member.
Great. Any other questions, discussion? Anything else you would like to hear from us, Colin?
No, this is the start of the conversation. It's a big conversation, and that's why I wanted Dan and John here, and we'll continue to want their presence here and their input, because we want to make sure that we do everything the right way. And so we see a need. We want to make sure we address that need, but we also want to make sure that we do it exactly the way that it needs to be done.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you,
You're
John.
welcome.
We invite you to look at me. John, you can still watch me all you want, but if you'd like to go, I understand.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Okay. Moving on to 3.5, school safety plan, public hearing. Do we have to gavel this in differently because of the public hearing? Is that
I
like
don't
a
think
thing?
we need a gavel.
I don't know. I just know how they do it on board meetings.
So some quick information about the safety plans. So all safety plans need to be approved by the board by the end of February. And so working backwards from that, we need to hold a public hearing prior. And so today we will hold the public hearing, and the action will be at the next board meeting. And so all of the schools have shared their current safety plans for the current year. And at this point, I'd like to open the public hearing. Susie, are there any public comments regarding the safety plan?
So there is no open comments for this safety plan.
Okay, thank you. And so this is, again, a matter of process and is very simple. Having no public comments, we can, unless there are any board comments regarding the safety plans, we can close the public hearing.
Questions?
I have a question. I was just curious, like, do we have a third party who reviews the safety plan and making sure that hey, it's, you know, best practice?
We do, and so we have fire, police. So we do have the fire, police review the safety plans and actually sign off on the safety plans, and so we do run it by them. And then I also know that depending on the authorizer, some authorizers do like to review it beforehand as well.
So, like, is the safety police specific for each of the location?
It's the local law enforcement, it's the local police
For
department.
each of the schools?
Correct. So, for example, for Condor, Heritage, and Meridian, Santa Ana Police Department. For Anaheim, it would be Anaheim Police Department, and so on. Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Anything? Okay, thank you. We can go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you for taking the time. Obviously, safety is one of the biggest concerns we have. Okay, moving on to 3.6, the audit report presentation.
All right, and we have a few slides. This should be very quick. So there is a new state requirement that we do present the audit report to the board and share any findings if there are any. But I'm going to make sure that there's no suspense. There are no audit findings in our 2024 Vista Charter Public Schools audit. And again, you met Dan Lee earlier. He is here. If there are any further questions, he is the expert as a former auditor. But again, very, very short presentation here. So the purpose of the audit is really to ensure accountability, to ensure transparency, and to ensure compliance with financial and operational standards by the independent auditor. And we use an independent auditor, Silva & Silva. It is also very important. It's not only a requirement, but it's also important to ensure that each school's operational success, financial health, and long-term sustainability. And it can also make sure that we are in compliance with certain grant terms and bond covenants and things like that. So it is, in addition to the requirement of holding the annual audit, it's also important for a school's operational success. And I know there wasn't very much suspense, but the 2024 Vista Charter Public Schools audit found no findings during its review of all schools and all bond financials. So
that's great news. Congratulations.
Yes. And that is my presentation. If there are, again, it's not a very long or in-depth presentation. A clean audit, and we have continued to have clean audits year after year. It's something that we definitely pride ourselves on. If there are any questions, I can either help answer, or Dan is here as well.
Questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to 3.7, mid-year academic diagnostic data presentation.
All right, and that's me. There's oh, I can, if I forget to click, remind me. All right, so good evening, everybody, board members, staff, and partners. I'm going to be sharing today our Diagnostic 2 progress for grades K-8. Vista uses the iReady diagnostic test. We administer it 3 times a year, and we take those results to monitor student achievement and also action plan for next steps. I'm excited tonight to share data, to share our progress. As I go through, please feel free to interrupt me with questions, and I'll also leave time for questions in the end. So these are our results for K-8. As Mr. Prana mentioned, the high school uses currently IXL, and because as he is taking on his new role, we are working with IXL to look at the data and track progress at Meridian as well. So we can share that data later as well. But tonight I'll just be reporting on K-8, which is the grade levels that uses iReady. So, oh, no. Oh, there we go. All right. So on this first slide, it's our overall results for diagnostic 2. Currently, we have the green is showing that students are either mid, above, or early on grade level. The yellow shows that they're 1 grade level below. The light red is 2 grade levels below, and the dark red is 3 or more grade levels below. As you can see in reading, we're approximately at 22% in the green and 14% in math. And the goal is that throughout the year, the green and the yellow those numbers get bigger and the red gets smaller. I do want to mention that we do ask our principals to have 95% participation rate, which is what the state requires for state testing as well. And that participation rate was met at all of our schools, and some schools even 100%. So the next slide shows, I'm going to start with comparisons. So on the top graph, you'll see our results from the first diagnostic to the second diagnostic in reading. As you can see, the goal is to get the green to get higher and the red to get lower. And we are on track in reading. Okay. The next one is math. So same thing. At the beginning of the year, we're about 6% in the green. That number went up as well, and you're going to see less red. So for each school, how did each school do? And same thing, we'll get into comparison. So, okay, nope. All right. So in these next slides, you can see where how each school performed at each band, whether it's mid, above, early on, below, or 3+ below. The top 3 bars are the elementary schools. Elementary school students tend to do better than middle school students, and you can see the difference where the red tends to increase a little bit more in the middle school. And this is reading for all of our schools. And the next one is math for all of our schools. So again, you tend to see a little bit more red. Oh, sorry. In the middle school grades.
Can I ask a couple questions
Yes.
on these 2 slides? Actually, 3 questions.
Yes.
One question is are the assessments different? I mean, they're different assessments from middle school than they are elementary. Is the tool a problem also, or is it are you seeing the growth coming down in middle school because the tool is different? I mean, are they averaged on the same metrics? Do you get the same results? It seems like the dramatic drop, right, from elementary to middle. And so I'm wondering if the assessment is different, and that makes that all middle schools drop because the assessment is harder in middle school. Or how do they manage it against the standards, I guess, the California state standards, for instance?
So the assessment is, I'm going to say the same. It's not the same, obviously, but it's standards based. And I want to say it's the same level of rigor at each grade level. I think in 6th grade, students have been in school a lot longer. So there's been a little bit more time for that achievement gap to widen. And then just want to remind everybody that our middle schools don't have, like, our 5th graders are not completely feeding into the 6th graders to the 6th grade right now, because we don't have enough fifth graders at our elementaries yet to feed into, and actually we probably never will, to feed into the middle schools. So there's also an element of students coming in from other systems. I have dug into the data a little bit, and we do have data that shows that students that have been in our elementaries are outperforming students that have not in middle school. It's that data isn't in this presentation though, but
Yeah,
I think there's a number of factors, and that's one of them.
yeah, that's great. And
Mhm.
I should have started with, I looked at this whole deck and the growth is great. I kind of cut to the specific question, but you can see you're making great growth around the system. And so that's really impressive that you're still seeing that from diagnostic 1 to diagnostic 2. I would love at some point for us to highlight the data of the students that have been through the Vista Elementary and into middle school, and look at that demographic, because I think well, I also believe that just looking at the transition of students coming in is something that we should look at in general for the students that stay in Vista all the way through, or even in the elementary stay there consistently, what their growth looks like versus students that pop into the system in second grade or fourth grade or seventh grade, which is because they may come in at a different level. I don't know that. I'd like to see, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Awesome. No, it's good. Thank you.
We have a question.
Yeah.
So it's like for Horizon, is that for all grade levels?
Yes, this is for all grade levels.
And do you have it by grade levels?
I didn't hear, but I can share it because I do. I just didn't know how much or how little you want to see. I can go really deep into the data. And I also want to share that this is K-8. Toward the end of the presentation, I will share some data that is just 3-8 because those are the only grades that test at the end of the year.
Yeah, one of the things I'm interested or be interested in looking at is, let's say if it's a fifth grade, right? And I want to see how all the fifth grades are doing or fifth graders are doing. Do we treat them all the same, or like the top performers, do they get treated differently from like the middle, from the lower? Because it seems like the people in the lower tier, the kids, may need more assistance.
Yeah, and that was what I had mentioned to you earlier about the action planning, principals choosing specific student groups to focus, providing providing intervention for the students who are struggling more, or providing a higher level of intervention. And then just working with teachers around like reteaching and what skills students need to follow up with, so that they can improve because the work is getting the yellows to the green, but also maintaining the green and obviously supporting the reds.
Yeah, I would just add, again, I wanted to stamp the growth, right, that you're seeing. And so things are working and moving forward, but also for the board, know how much you're familiar with already. A lot of it's self-directed, right, learning. And so culture and buy-in to the process, because students are on a computer, right? And so I know that with our elementary schools, it tends to be a little bit easier because they're in one classroom, one space. It's easier to have them spend time. When they're in middle school, you got to find a certain block.
Yep.
And so I'm just curious, I know we've given you a ton of questions and we can talk, but like, how is that process? Like, when do the middle schoolers, because we set goals, an example of like 45 minutes a day. Are there goals like that? Are there incentives in terms of intrinsic, but also, getting kids to be on a computer and self-direct learning?
Yeah, I think right now it's kind of what you said. It's a little bit easier in the elementaries from what I've noticed. The students are on there more time, not more time. It's just easier because they're self-contained. The middle schools, they both do have that challenge, but I know that, they're setting, like for example, the principal set the time expectation, and then I think teacher in grade level teams, they decide when students are working on it. I know that in the middle school, they even work on it for homework to make sure that they meet those minutes. And then I know that there's goals for minutes, but also lessons passed. So I was just at, I don't remember which one, but I was just at one of the middle schools where I asked the students, oh, how are you, how's it going? What are you doing? How many lessons have you passed? And the students were like, oh, I haven't passed them yet, but I'll have them passed by the end of the week. So there is an expectation that has been communicated to the students, and they're aware. So in the next slides, I'll share growth for each school. You'll see, okay, so you'll see each school, and then you'll see the growth. The top bar is from the first diagnostic. The bottom bar is the second diagnostic. So again, you can see the green moving in the right direction, the red moving in the right direction, and there was one other thing. Oh, and then reading is on one side and math is on the other. So this is Vista Condor, the Santa Ana K5. Again, feel free to interrupt with any questions. Palm Lane, Anaheim K6, Horizon, this is the LA K5.
I do have another
Go ahead.
question. I noticed that between some of the elementary schools, there was a great deal of growth in math,
Mm-hmm.
and then some there was a great deal more growth in English language arts.
Mhm.
Are you looking at, is that something you're seeing demographics driving that, or is that something, have you been able to see that in the data yourself? And do you have a thought why that may be the case between the schools?
This year, we have put a bit more focus on in math. Generally, and historically, if you look at the state level, at any level, there's always a huge discrepancy between math and ELA. So this year we have been putting a little bit more of a focus in math. And then the schools that showed more growth in reading, I think it's also because, you know, again, each school sets their own focus areas and kind of how they're working with the students.
Yeah, and just to add, I think like what's also really important for the board and folks to know is that, you know, for schools that are up for renewal,
Mm-hmm.
right, you have your CAS data, but you also need to provide your interim data
Mhm.
and to show growth. So we're showing growth, which is great, but also that this data really does matter. And so when we think about that, I think just some things to consider, because I looked through this and I appreciate, don't want to interrupt, but like one of the great things as a district is figuring out where things are working and what we can do to replicate while still honoring schools individually. And so I'd be curious to look at both, like at the individual classroom level, because a lot of this is driven by teacher culture, school culture, admin culture.
Mhm.
Where is it working and what can we replicate and learn from? And then also it would be really nice to know, especially looking at the like English language learners and our special demographics to show that we're meeting those targets, because that's on the California dashboard and one of the key indicators of if we're serving our students. So just wanted to name that. And so we're showing growth, which is really fabulous. But also that, you know, just putting whatever resources we can give to support.
Yes, thank you. And we, as our authorizers do ask for the verified data, the internal data. So they will be looking to up to two years of growth for renewal. So this is definitely data that we have our eye on.
And just curious, and this isn't part of this, but do we have any schools that are up for renewal next year?
Yes, we have
Condor and Palm Lane.
two.
Condor and Palm.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to the middle schools. So this is Vista Charter. And again, you can see the green moving in the right direction and the red moving in the right direction, and Heritage, the Santa Ana 6-8. All right, so the last thing I want to share is mission measure progress. As part of our strategic plan, we do have mission measures, so quantifiable measures that are aligned to our school's mission. And currently for math and ELA, our goal is that in 5 years, which is our strategic plan, the time for our strategic plan, that we are at the same level of the state or above. It's a very lofty goal, but we really believe that we can get there. So at the beginning of the year, all the principals met and they set a goal as to where they want to. So because we have to be at the state level in 5 years, each principal has set incremental goals for each year and how they're going to get there for each year. So if you look at the last column that says goal, that's the incremental goal that each principal has set for year one, which is this school year. So as you can see, for each school, you can see the diagnostic 1 result, diagnostic 2. This number is percent proficient. Sorry, I should have put that on there. So basically Horizon went from 11% of students in the green after diagnostic 1 back in August to 34% of students in the green in December, with a 23% growth. The last column is what I already calls projected proficiency, which basically means if every student makes their typical growth by the end of the year, that's the projected proficiency that they have as of now. So that's another gauge and another measure that we take because we need this number to go up. So for example, we need that 29% to go up to 44%, and we need that 14% for Condor to go up to 26%. So one thing that principals are doing is looking at student groups and seeing what students are there, right? Which students make up that 14%, and then which students do we need to focus on to get to that 26% in the last column. But as you can see in reading, all of our schools are making growth, some very significant growth. So definitely headed in the right direction. And then this is math. So again, by the end of 5 years, we want to be at the same level as the state. So that's the goal that each school has set for math for the end of the year and kind of where they're headed. And again, we're seeing some good growth in math as well. So, you know, definitely headed in the right direction, but also definitely have lots of work to do. And like I said, tomorrow, all the principals will be going through a data analysis protocol that we'll be doing together. Again, taking that to the school level, the school site level for teachers, grade level, student level in PLC teams. And we're going to keep on tracking and monitoring the data. The last administration actually takes place in April. So we don't wait until the end of the year for Diagnostic 3. We take it in April so that principals and teachers can analyze that data, and they still have time to impact that projected proficiency rate before the Smarter Balance assessment. So, and I will make sure that I get you EL and other subgroup data as well. Questions?
I know this is for the board, right? And so maybe that subgroup, is that subgroup data going to be analyzed with the principals?
Yes.
Very great.
Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you very much for all the work on this and the focus on this. We know how important it is and how hard it is. Okay, I gotta skip back to my agenda here. Okay, we're on to 3.8, the CTE budget presentation.
Members of the, oh, there we go. Vista leadership, Vista staff, and community members. I am Dr. Catherine Real, and it is my pleasure to give you an update on our college and career grants. And I want to start by assuring you that as much fun as the students look like they're having with the blood draw activity, they are actually using a simulated arm and red saline. So they're not quite ready to draw your blood. So if you do need your blood drawn, I suggest you go to a medical facility recognized by the state of California because they're not ready yet, but they're having a great time learning. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I'm just going to go over a few of these points. These are the hallmarks of a quality career tech education program. And these are the goals that we're shooting for when I write these grants, because I want to put ourselves in a good position to get additional grants later on. So some of the things like career guidance and exploration, work-based learning activities, industry recognized certifications, and of course, equal access and CTE credentialed staff teaching these courses. Next slide, please. Here are some of the grants, CTE grant requirements. So they do require us to demonstrate a commitment to CTE. So in other words, we have to have some skin in the game when we ask the state for funding to support our CTE programs. Most of the grants require a 2-to-1 match. So if we're asking for $100,000, we need to show that we have invested $200,000 of our own funding into our CTE programs, facilities, staffing, and PD, for example. We also have to demonstrate a minimum score on the CTE high quality evaluation document. We need to serve grades 7 through 12 CTE pathways, demonstrate a connection to high school CTE completion, pathway completion, and of course, provide equitable access to high demand, high skill, and high wage jobs. Next slide, please. This slide is a snapshot of our current active VISTA grants. So you can see that we have earned successive rounds of the Strong Workforce Grant in addition to successive rounds of the CTE Incentive Grant. And last spring, we were able to earn or be awarded 3 new grants, the Middle College and Early College Grant, the College and Career Pathways Grant, and the big daddy of them all, the Golden State Pathways Program Grant for $1.68 million. And if you haven't done the math yet, these all add up to just over $3 million that we are using to create and implement the programs and activities that we talk about in all of our charters. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to go very quickly over our grants just so you have an idea of the major goals for each one. Each of these slides will show you the name of the grant, the schools that it covers, the grant funding term, the total grant amount, and then some major goals. So Strong Workforce Grant Round 6, major goals are to create a sustainability pathway and then create seamless pathways from middle to high school to college. So we want students at Heritage to be able to explore, for example, the biomedical pathway, continue that at Meridian, and continue it while still in high school at our Santa Ana through our early college program. And of course, we want to start career tech student organizations. I'll be talking about those in a later slide. Next slide, please. Next grant is the CTE Incentive Grant, Round 9B. Some of the major goals are putting a college and career counselor at Vista Heritage, and then 2 CTE credentialed Vista Heritage teachers, and the support robotics, computer science, and the other programs that you see and activities that you see across both schools. So if you look at that picture, this is a great example of creating seamless pathways. You have the middle school biomedical teacher, Ms. Meskel, on the left, and the high school biomedical teacher on the right, Ms. Legaspi. Next slide. The Strong Workforce Grant Round 7 is one of our most recent grants. The major goals are to establish a teaching pathway to meet the California shortage in teachers, and also to build our very own pipeline of future global ed teachers that will come back and teach in our schools. Also to expand the global business and entrepreneurship pathway, and to establish 2 CTSOs or CTE student organizations. One of them you may have heard about, Future Business Leaders of America. The other one is for our teaching pathway, and that is the Family, Career, and Community Leadership of America organization. And students will be able to participate in local, regional, state, and hopefully national activities and competitions through those student organizations. Next slide. The CTE Incentive Grant Round 10 allows us to support and expand our CTE instruction and guidance, particularly at Vista Heritage, but also at Meridian. And there you see a picture of our new Heritage counselor who is going to be implementing, along with the high school counselors, college career exploration curriculum. This grant also supports CTE instructor professional development and externships across all schools. Next slide. College and Careers Access Pathways Grant. This is a high school only grant, and the major goals are to multi-fund or partial fund a CTE and dual enrollment counseling position. These programs, CTE and dual enrollment, require a lot of intervention and support in order for our students to be successful. So the counseling position has been rewritten to provide that intervention for, and this will partially fund one of those positions. Collaboration with Santa Ana College, between Santa Ana College and Meridian staff, teacher assistant positions, and funding for training in high yield ELD and SPED strategies. So all of our special populations can benefit from these programs, and transportation for internships and early college classes. Next slide. The Middle College, Early College, High School grant is another new grant of ours. This will pay for the other part of the CTE and dual enrollment counseling position, counseling professional development, and create our newest program, which is our Rise and Persist program to support our Meridian students to transition to college after graduation. A lot of kids will get that letter, but it's all of the follow through and support that they need to actually get to college, persist, and attain those degrees. And last grant is the Golden State Pathways Grant for $1.68 million. This implements a second CTE and dual enrollment counseling position at the high school. So they have a really small caseloads and then help their students with all of these different programs and requirements. Among other things, there is a $47,000 annual budget to create and support a Way of Council student leadership retreat, including training, room and board, and all the good stuff. We're excited about that. And this will allow us to implement a robust expansion of our CTE internships, excuse me, and workforce readiness workshops. I believe this is the last slide here. The future goals of our grants will be to expand and work with Mr. Summer to put them in a good position to be eligible for these grants as a secondary school. And then pursue elementary CTE grants because unfortunately the ones that I just shared with you do not cover elementary school. And then of course to support Mrs. Carrillo and her establishment of CTE programs at Vista Lago Global Academy. Any questions?
Sounds like really exciting stuff. and,
Yeah.
like really important. I do have a few questions. Couple
Okay.
questions. How's the partnership with Santa Ana College been? Because I know that that can come with a lot of challenges and come with a lot of great opportunities.
Mhm.
I've partnered with LA Southwest College and, you know, we can get some dual enrollment going. Just curious, has that partnership seemed strong to you? Or is that something?
It's been wonderful. They've been,
That's great.
I've worked with a couple or two or three now California community colleges, and they're the most amenable, flexible,
Oh, that's wonderful.
helpful. They've been great.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Mhm.
And then with the, I think it was the Strong Workforce Grant to address the teacher shortage.
Oh, round 7.
The round
yes.
7. Is
Mhm.
that something that, are you partnering with organizations like, are we thinking of partnering with organizations like Encore or other specific science? Or is this,
Mhm.
how is this going to go?
Well, it's in
Yeah.
not completely in draft form,
Got
but
it.
yes, we could definitely do that. We definitely want to create the CTSO for our future teachers and participate in. One of the elements of the grant was using AI, so we want to make sure that we're teaching our future teachers best practices for high yield AI strategies, because as we know, it's not going away. So those are a few of the elements, but I'd love to speak to you afterwards
Yeah,
about some of your ideas. They sound
Of course,
great.
would love to help.
Mhm.
And then I love this Way of Counsel retreat that you're trying to do. That can be a life-changing event for students. Just desire to be involved and support whatever that needs.
Yeah, they're going to get a 2 or 3 day retreat where they really get to leave school and focus on their leadership skills, specifically in Way of Counsel. So I'm really excited to work with our new principal, Mr. Peruano. He has some resources to make that come together and materialize for our kids. But I love my job. I get all this good stuff. It's
Awesome.
fun.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you very much. Great presentation. Very helpful. Right. Sorry, I'm popping to a different screen. Okay. Now we're going to move to 3.9, presentation of new board member candidate. Colin?
Yes, so I would like to formally, she's not here today. She actually had a conflict with her own board meeting as an executive director, but I'd like to formally present Dr. Kelly Lay to the board as a board member candidate. Dr. Lay has a very accomplished career. She's been an educator both in the K-12 setting as well as in higher education. Most recently serving as the executive director of the UC Irvine Science Project, the executive director of the UC Cal State Environmental and Climate Change Literacy Initiative, which is a statewide initiative. And most recently, she has moved to a new role as the executive director of a nonprofit called Grades of Green. And so she's actually at the Grades of Green board meeting as we speak. But I first met her a few years ago when she was the executive director of the UC Irvine Science Project, and we were starting to partner with UC Irvine for that. And I was extremely impressed by her demeanor, her knowledge, and I feel like she would be an incredible addition to the Vista board. She's also has taken a very keen interest in the work that we do. She partners with a lot of different schools, but has really taken a very, like I said, keen interest in Vista, and just having conversations with her recently, she would be very excited to serve on the board. She, as I mentioned, she has the board meeting conflicts not only today, but she also would not be able to attend in February. But she said that she looked at the dates, and March on out she would be available. So, as a matter of process, again, our procedure for new board members is to introduce board members as a board member candidate at one meeting, and then if we so choose, to put that as an action item at a subsequent meeting.
Would you be thinking February or March to put it on the agenda?
I would recommend putting it on at the end of February's agenda, knowing that she wouldn't be able to participate. But if we were to approve her and vote her in, then she would be an active board member leading up to the March board meeting instead of waiting until mid meeting in March to do that. So that way she has access to everything beforehand. So that would be my recommendation. And I know that she said if any board members would like to speak with her, she's more than happy to be in contact with any or all of you.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Colin. Okay, we are moving on to action items. Rolling through now. All right, so the first action item in front of us today is the 4.1. It's the election of the board president, and it would be effective immediately for a term January 2025 through June 30, 2025. And I will entertain any nominations.
I'd like to nominate Miles Durfee, right, for our president.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations? I'm always looking. Okay. All right, so why don't we go ahead and vote on 4.1? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. And so 4.2, I'd like to entertain nominations for board secretary effective immediately for a term January 20th, 2025 through June 30th, 2025.
I'd like to nominate Michael Hoover.
Great.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Geronimo. Great. All right. Any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Congratulations, Michael. Thank you very much for serving that role. Okay, we have one more. Election of a board treasurer effective immediately for a term of January 20th, 2025 to June 30th, 2025. And I will accept nominations. I will go ahead and nominate Tuan, if you're willing, if there's a second.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, either one, great. Okay, any other nominations? Okay, we'll move forward with the vote.
Aye.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving. Congratulations, Tuan. All right, well, we've moved through 4.1, 2, and 3. Thank you all, and I know it's time out of your days to do those roles, and we know that everyone's really busy, so thank you all for participating in that. Okay, moving on to 4.4. This is the board policy on board member attendance. Colin, did you want to make any comments?
Yes, I think we need a motion first, and then
Oh, yeah, thank you.
and then I can.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So previously, we have sometimes had struggles meeting quorum, and with a lot of business going on and things that we need to attend to, making sure that we have board member attendance and meeting quorum is extremely important. And so I wanted to introduce a new board policy to the board about board member attendance, and it's a very simple policy. The expectation in this policy would be that all board members cannot miss more than 2, so you could miss 2, but not 3 meetings in any one school year. And so that is essentially, it's like a 75% attendance rate. So we usually have 10 regularly scheduled board meetings in each school year. And so making sure that you attend at least 8 of the 10, if not all 10.
So will the policy state whether the individual can attend in person or virtually?
So it doesn't mention that, but you could attend as long as you are in as long as you are in the state of California. You can attend virtually.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and in a public
And
place,
in a public
and a
location.
place
Yeah.
that we've noticed.
That we,
There is a little bit of work to make it virtual, but it is, yeah.
exactly.
There's-
Yeah. We do
there's
need
a
to
list.
publicize on the board agenda the location if you were to attend outside of one of our school settings.
Discussion? Anything else? I'm sorry. Discussion? I'm, go ahead.
No, I just appreciate it, right? Like we should hold ourselves accountable to being here and we're new. And so it's great to hear this now, but it's also just like an important responsibility. So appreciate it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. Yeah, no, as I look at the policy, I think the policy is pretty simple, but the commitment is what we're making. So glad to see that. And hopefully we can be there as, unless there's unforeseen reasons, we can try to be committed to this as much as possible. So, all right, we have a motion and a second in front of us. We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, hearing none. That motion carries. Now we're moving on to 4.5, the VCPS calendar. Colin?
Sorry, we need a motion in a second.
Oh,
A motion. We're new. Motion.
Second.
okay. I won't
Okay.
talk to you anymore, Colin. Tell
Yeah,
your motion.
no worries. So this is for next school year, the 2025-2026 academic calendar, as well as the work year calendar for all of the employees and different job classifications. It is very similar to this school year's calendar. By going through this process, we reached out to our principals and staffs at each school for feedback, as well as our central team who supports each of the schools and the different job classifications to ensure that this was in line with what everyone would feel comfortable with and the expectations. And so we feel good about this school calendar.
I know that when we create calendars like this, one of the important things for attendance is to consider the calendars of other local schools. I see by nodding your head that you've done that.
Yes. So all of the publicly available calendars. So we looked at LAUSDs, we looked at Santa Ana Unifieds. I believe Anaheim and Lake Elsinore did not have 25-26 calendars, but we definitely look at all of the district calendars that we in the districts that we serve.
And you said that it was pretty much the same as
Pretty
last
much
year.
the
Was
same.
forward?
Obviously, there's differences from district to district, and so we try to take into account how we can kind of bridge the difference and what is best for each of our schools.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was going back, and that was my fault. On the question of the creation of this calendar
Yes.
from last year's calendars, pretty much pretty much the same.
Yeah, very similar in terms of like a 3-week winter break.
Yep.
Like, oh, yeah, the breaks are very similar.
Okay.
Second week of August is when we start. So
This year, LAUSD only had 2 weeks of school in December and we had 3. And
That
I
hurts.
think most of the staff and the students preferred it. So we kept it the same for next year as well.
So LAUSD has 4 weeks essentially of break between, or do they?
No, we went off on different dates and we came back on different dates.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions about this calendar? The management calendar, can you go over that?
yeah, so the management calendar we have, I think it's up to G, right, Miss? So there's different classifications based on there's different calendars for each job classification, and so we have a document that shows each position that Vista has and what work calendar that is. And so this is a master calendar for each of our job classifications. And so, for example, I'll office managers, there are certain dates because it aligns with payroll dates that we need to make sure that they work. And so sometimes you'll see a random Thursday or something like that during winter break or over the summer that they need to work because even though school might not be in session, we still need to process payroll.
Great. Thank you, because I looked at that and I saw all the letters and I'm like, okay, so how do I know who's working what? But now I'm with you. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt these calendars for the next 25-26 school year. Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Okay, on to item 4.6, travel cost to the CCSA conference in the amount not to exceed, I guess, $10,000. I'll look for a motion. Getting better, right?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to second on the table.
And this
Any
is
comments?
for the CCSA conference that's coming up in March. We asked at least one representative from each school to be present there, and we also think it would be a great opportunity for our community school coordinators to attend the CCSA conference as well.
Great. Looks like there were like 12 folks going, which is really nice to see in Sacramento, right?
And I also want to add that back in September, at the September board meeting here, the board approved Karen and myself. So you don't see our names because we've already been board approved to attend.
Great. Okay. Motion seconds on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Hearing none, unanimous. All right, moving on to 4.7, the Clean School Bus Rebate Program. Motion by someone?
I motion that.
Well, thank you.
Second.
Okay, motion second.
So we have 3 school buses here in Santa Ana. They are old gas guzzler school buses, and the state of California has a new initiative where under the Clean School Bus Rebate Program, we could apply to trade in our old diesel buses for brand new electric buses, and also including the charging infrastructure that goes along with that. And so we have this is a ratification, so we have already submitted this, and Miles has signed for it. But this is the board authorization form for this submission. If we do receive this this grant, it's just under $1 million for the 3 new electric school buses. So very exciting. We are hopeful. This is the first time that we've tried this, so we'll see what happens.
Great. Okay, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, none opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. We're back to the 4.9 VCPS academic honesty policy. This is coming back to us from
4.8, sorry.
Oh. 4.8, I'm sorry, 4.8, I jumped ahead. 4.8 CTE teacher job description and salary scale. I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
all right.
So we saw a need because we have more and more CTE teachers, as you heard Dr. Rial share. Currently, they're on our regular certificated teacher salary scale. However, CTE teachers have different credential requirements and a lot of different things that entails. And so we saw the need to create not only its own job description, but also its own salary scale. It's a very similar salary scale to our teachers. However, in terms of units, for example, this is more like associate's degree industry certifications, because, for example, a CTE teacher can get their credential without a bachelor's degree. But a regular credentialed teacher has to have a bachelor's degree. And so we wanted to make sure this aligned with the state's requirements, but also making sure that if we do get a high quality CTE credentialed teacher that has significant experience in that field, that we are honoring up to 7 years of that experience in this scale.
Okay, great. Any questions? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carries unanimously. Now we move to 4.9, the academic honesty policy. And like I said, this is coming back to us from our last meeting discussion. And so we have a red line version in front of us. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Colin, any further comments? I think this is,
It was the two thing, I think it was two minor things that we adjusted due to the
Yeah,
feedback. Yeah.
yeah, I
to
appreciate
make-
that. I appreciate the quick turnaround on it, and it was small, but thank you for considering.
Exactly. And it's more in line with our philosophy.
yeah, small but meaningful. That's
Exactly.
important.
Yep.
That's perfect. Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. 4.10, CalSTRS employer paid member contributions, Vista Lago. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
So last month, we brought this to the board. Unfortunately, we had used an outdated form for this resolution. And so when we submitted it to the Riverside County Office of Education to then submit it to CalSTRS, it was sent back. And we have verified that this is the current form and resolution to use. And so this is one of two resolutions that we need to have board approved in order for Vista Lago to be able to activate CalSTRS for retirement purposes.
Okay. Questions? Question? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Now we'll do the second one, 4.12 resolution to, or I'm sorry, or back to 411. Is the second one? That's where we are, right? 411, CalSTRS is the second of the two resolutions. Is that right?
411.
Yeah.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay.
Of two resolutions, yeah.
Okay, hearing probably no questions. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. Move unanimously on that. 4.12, resolution to add board treasurer to the VCPS bank accounts and additional signer. I was gonna look at you, but I'm gonna, since you're the treasurer, I'm not now.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
And so again, to verify, this is to add Tuan as the new board treasurer as a bank signer in all of our Vista accounts.
okay. No questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. All right, that motion carries. We're on to 413, the school accountability report cards. Now I'm gonna look at one. I've been putting a lot of pressure on them to make motions. Would you like to make a motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. School accountability report cards, anything to report, Colin?
Yeah, so this is a standard guideline for all schools in California, and it needs to be board approved and posted by the end of January. And so the school accountability report card outlines information such as demographic data, achievement data, class size data, credential data, etc.
All this information, is it based on state requirements?
Yes.
Yeah, and I would just say that this is a document that's been around forever. And for me, it's really great because I know I can go to any school in the state of California and I can look at their SARC and learn a lot of information that's in the same format, so I can kind of compare apples to apples a little bit more. So I just say that for the public to know, if there's anybody listening or watching, these are great documents to evaluate what's happening at schools and what they're like. So, okay, motion's on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. This is a ratification 414 of the first interim budgets for Vista Heritage Global and Condor Palm Lane, Vista Meridian Global Academy. Arturo did a presentation on these earlier tonight. I'll take a motion from someone.
Motion.
Thank you, Tuan.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Any comments or questions, Colin? We've already seen it. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And that, I think, moved us through our 4.14 was our last action item, right? Okay. Board comments on 5.1. Do you want to talk about process of how you've done board comments in the past?
It
Open?
yeah, open forum for any board members, especially if there are any things that you would like to see at future board meetings, or any comments from the meeting here.
Okay, anyone have any comments?
No, I appreciate, right, the information that's shared, right, and the principal reports and getting to speak to one. It sounds right. I think we touched a little bit on getting some of that demographic data, like, so we can look into that. But other than that, everything seems so far like it's been going really, really well. So thank you.
I would just say, again, we're sitting in this beautiful room, which I was lucky to join the staff with to open. And I know that Colin already mentioned Alyssa, but thanks, Alyssa, for all the work you did to set that up. Not only the ceremony, but all the work it was to make this a reality, this room, and to move the organization forward in that way. So, and then I also wanted to just say I was able to be involved in the mid-cycle WASC visit. And that experience, again, shows all the great work staff is doing. You know, you've already gotten the approval for the WASC, and so it wasn't really a high-stress event, but Michael was there as well, and it was, you know, it was good to see people celebrate your work, and I think the WASC committee was happy with what they saw. So.
Yeah, and that reminded me, and this is a little bit of just like an accountability on my part, but new to the org, right? New to the board. And I want to make sure though that while we're up here that I know the schools. And so going to the school site, walking with the principal, meeting the kids, and I would just encourage all of us. I know we're all busy, right? But it's one thing to look at these spreadsheets and this stuff, and it's another to like know the people that are behind the numbers. And so, you know, I'd love to meet with you, set something up, and ensure that, you know, we're not just looking at a screen.
And I know I'm not on the board, but in response to that, me personally, and I'd like to share this with all the board, like I've had my own goal of walking every school site at least once a year with each board member. So I wanted to say that out loud.
That's great. Yeah, I echo that. I'd like to, if there are ways that I can be involved, visiting schools is great. I heard someone talk about senior portfolios. You know, if you have public there, you're looking for portfolio folks to see those things. I know that's happens, so I have some flexibility to do that depending on dates, and I'd love to be more engaged and involved so that I can learn even more about the system. So yeah, so that was my comment is, you know, thank you staff for you know, it is a lot of work. I've seen way more board meetings in my life than maybe I wanted to when I started to grow up, but it is a lot of work for staff to pull off a board meeting this well and to make all of the information available and transparent to the public. It doesn't happen everywhere like this, so thank you for all the efforts to do that, because I think, you know, we have two customers, well, more than two, but at least two. The students are the first customer, and then the public is the second, and that's what makes a school a great thing. So thanks for all the work to that. So with that, I would close the board comments, and it looks like we can adjourn our meeting into closed session. Is that how you want to do it?
That is correct. So yeah, we will move into closed session. We have planned for this in the boardroom. So if you would like to stay, by all means, you can stay. However, if you would like to leave, you may leave. After this, it's just a report out of any information from closed session and adjournment on the agenda. So thank you everyone for coming. And
okay, so I'll take a motion to move to adjournment of to move to closed session, or do I have to do that? Okay, so we're gonna just move. What's that?
Move to closed session.
Move to closed session. All right. Second, do we have to take a vote? Do we have to take a vote? Okay.
Well, let's vote. Yes, we got a second.
Second,
Second.
favor of moving to
Aye.
closed session?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we did. Thank you, Arturo. And we will be back if anybody wants to be here for it. Are we live?
Yes.
So when, and the time for adjournment. Okay, we're going to reconvene from closed session. There was nothing to report out from closed session tonight, and we'll move on to the next, which is adjournment. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I motion that.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you. We'll see you at the next meeting, which is in the third week of February, right? 24th. Oh, and the meeting is 7:55. We're adjourning. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm learning.